What is going on, guys? Grave here. Today I'd like to talk about the combat changes in update 46 that came this week in the public test server. This is week 4, so we're getting closer and closer to time for update 46 to be released. And this is going to kind of coincide with the past videos I made about each class and the changes coming to those classes. Some of these things got nerfed again or buffed back to its original state before the public test server was announced or before it began. Let's just go ahead and hop right into it and talk about these changes. The Dragon Knight, which I said in the Dragon Knight video, was probably one of the weaker classes in update 46. I didn't feel like it was getting as much as some of the other classes did from subclassing. So they decided to reduce the ability cost of some things here. So Searing Strike, they reduced the cost of the ability and its morphs to 2,295, down from 2,970 to account for their melee requirements. Fiery Breath, they reduced the cost of this ability and the Engulfing Flames morph to 298.84 to account for their melee requirements. Also, Noxious Breath. This morph now also applies the poison status effect to all enemies hit by the initial hit. So that's kind of an interesting change there. You're getting that poison status effect as well right off that initial hit. Draconic Power, Dark Talons, which is a great skill for people that use, this is a damage build. Dark Talons is really, really good. Any of the Talons are really good to me, choking or dark. Reduce the cost of this ability and the Burning Talons morph to 3,000 or 3,150, down from 3,780. And that was one big complaint about it. It cost a lot to cast, and you need to cast it often, and you have whip going along with that, and it just burns through resources. So that was a good change there, in my opinion. Choking Talons, the cost reduction bonus from this morph now takes the cost to 3,240, down from 3,510. So both of those got a good, decent change. In my opinion, still, I was hoping, and they may do this in the future, I didn't think it would happen anytime before update 46 came out. I'm hoping they will rearrange some of these passives and where some of these skills lie inside of the skill lines, because I feel like there are some really good skills, but they're in really bad skill lines that I don't know if you would really choose those skill lines to use with subclassing. There might be one really good ability, but the rest is just kind of average or not really good. And I feel like that's kind of where the Dragon Knight still is, even though some of these changes are really nice. I think they're good. I think they were needed, but I still feel like the Dragon Knight's not quite where it needs to be going forward. For the Necromancer, Bone Tyrant, Bone Goliath, this morph special bash attack now works for non-Necromancer classes. So, of course, that's something to deal with subclassing. For the Sorcerer, Daedric Summoning, Bound Armaments, reverted the previous 10% damage reduction made during the first week of the public test server. This is one thing that I saw a ton of people really kind of mad about, because the Nightblade is so good. You have a lot of skills from the Nightblade side that's really good, and a lot of people felt like Bound Armaments is not good enough, and then they turned around and nerfed it. Now they have buffed that back to its previous, kind of state before the first week of the public test server. Also, Dark Exchange, this ability and its morphs now break stealth and invisibility immediately upon activation, rather than not removing either at all. Storm Calling, Lightning Splash, this ability and its morphs synergy can now be self-synergized to make the abilities feel less like a sacrifice for the caster to run. This was a big one to me, because I always felt like the Lightning Splash was good, but over time, we've seen the ability for you to actually use your own synergies, and I was thinking that would be great for this one. We did see some of those changes also in the Templar class, so I really am glad to see that with Storm Calling and that Lightning Splash there. Templar, Adric, Spear Shards, Luminous Shards, the synergy granted from this ability can now self-synergize by the caster in many cases, so there's another example of that. Dawn's Wrath, Radiant Destruction, this ability and its morphs now last for 3.8 seconds in total, down from 4.8 seconds. Reduce the cost per tick to 1,080, so the cost per second remains the same over the total duration tick rate. Increase the base damage by 4%, and increase the health threshold to execute scaling start at 33%, up from 30%. They also increase the status effect chance per tick by 6%, up from 3%. So that's a bit of a change from what they were looking at in week 1. Radiant Glory, they reduced the cost of this morph to be a 40% cost reduction up from a 33% cost reduction. They reduced the healing done to 15% of the damage done, down from 20%. Radiant Oppression. This morph's execute scaling now starts at 40%, up from 39%, which is not a massive change, just a small change there. And once again, the Templar, I still think is in a good spot, but I don't know if it is. It's not as bad off to me as the DK class is, because there's still a lot of good things going on there that you can do with a Templar with subclassing. But I still feel like the changes to Radiant Glory and Radiant Oppression were still not as good as they could have been. When you look at something like Fate Carver compared to what a lot of people call on the Templar the Jesus Beam, I still feel like Fate Carver wins out in a lot of ways to me, even with its boost in cost and everything that it's gotten within the patch notes so far, or the public test server just in general with update 46. I still feel like Fate Carver is better overall than what you're getting from Radiant Glory or Radiant Oppression with the Templar. That's just my opinion. Everybody else may not agree with that, but I just feel like it could have had a bit more done there. But it is nice, like I said, to start seeing these classes getting these synergies where you can self-synergize instead of having to depend on someone else to use it. It kind of feels like a crutch thing to run because it's not really benefiting you. And last but not least, the Warden Winter's Embrace Piercing Cold. They decreased the passive increase to frost damage to 7 and 15%, up from 5 and 10. This was also a big complaint during that first week of the public test server. A lot of people feel like Piercing Cold was that the Warden is not everything there with ice. If you want to make an ice Warden, it felt like it was not as good as it could be, and then they were already nerfing things that were not really up to par to begin with. So I felt like this was a good change back to getting some better damage from Piercing Cold. It says they're temporarily inflating the damage of this passive to influence the frost damage a bit more aggressively than we'd like, until we can find a better long-term solution, like more sources of frost damage in general for those who wish to wield the cold-like weapon. And I think that is a great idea. Hopefully they can find something in the future to fix this, to adjust it like they want, but also still be something when you feel like if you make a frost mage, it is actually a real frost mage. You're not having to run other stuff with it. You can make a true frost mage, and I think that would be an awesome thing for a lot of Warden fans out there, and something I would really enjoy myself. Anyway, guys, leave me a comment. Let me know what you think about these changes here in the week 4 of the public test server. Like I said, I don't know how much more combat or how many more combat changes we'll see, because it's getting close to being the end of the public test server and getting, of course, close to the live version of Update 46 coming out. So I'm assuming any major combat change we see will probably be after Update 46 launches. Leave me a comment with your thoughts, and of course, if you like the video, hit the like. If you have not subscribed yet, please do so, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.